Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another version of Invitation to a Conversation. We had a little technical difficulty this morning, but we're here today, and my guest today is Dr. Regina Hedgemen Johnson, who is running for the Glynn County Board of Education. Good morning, Miss Johnson. Dr. Johnson, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you, Miss Bailey?
I'm doing good. It feels like fall out there, doesn't it?
It does. It's a beautiful, beautiful day with a
Yes.
nice breeze.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you for accepting my invitation to this conversation. I seem to be inviting, you're my second person who I'm invited that's running for election here this coming November. So thank you and welcome again. Right now, to the listening audience, I'm going to read her bio. Dr. Regina Lynette Hedgemen Johnson arrived in the Golden Isles of Brunswick, Georgia in 1979 to begin her career as a teacher in the Glynn County public school system. Her third-year career led her to teach all elementary grade curriculum and support teachers in all levels throughout the county, state, and nation as a national board certified teacher, trainer, facilitator. Georgia Professional Standards Commissions reach to teach for faculty and has a National Council of Accreditation of Teacher Education Board Examiner. Raised and educated in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, she learned the beauty and power of community service and its positive impact upon the lives of citizens, but more importantly, her children. As a teacher, she learned to capitalize on this foundation to impact the lives of the children and families and have been entrusted to serve and to build bridges and partnership in service. Her late husband, Larry, and her were blessed to build their careers and family of 4 children, Creighton, Cosby, Gabrielle, and James, upon the foundations of faith and service in the place she now calls home, Brunswick, Georgia. As a teacher, she allowed herself to spread her wings beyond the undergraduate and graduate textbook lessons of Bowie State University, the Ohio State, Georgia Southern, and Argos, is that pronounced right?
Argosy.
Argosy University campus to grasp a greater understanding in the development of her gift of teaching. It is a gift that empowers and guides her commitment in the following 3 ways: to invest entirely in the growth and development of students, especially children, and their adventure of learning, to think systematically about the art or practice of creative teaching, and to remain an active and supportive member of the learning community. The job of opening doors and widening corridors of opportunity are never completely exhausted. In this ongoing and directed work has been recognized and honored within the nation, state, and local bodies of Department of Family and Children's Services, National Education Association, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, National Democratic Committee, Southeast Georgia Health System Auxiliary, County of Glynn and City of Brunswick, and most recently as a candidate for the District 4 School Board. My commitment remains. It is in this light that I continue my service in helping to make education the great equalizer. This walk of faith in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior is undergirded by my church family of First African Baptist Church of Brunswick. Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Thank you. First of all, let me ask, where is Agassiz University?
Argosy University has its home base out of Chicago, Illinois. However, they have satellite campuses in Sarasota, in Atlanta, and I believe it's another satellite in Los Angeles. But its home base is in Chicago.
Okay, okay. That's the first time I heard of that university. um, why and how did you get into teaching? What made teaching your career choice?
I began, if you don't mind me going back a little further, I began my education with an emphasis on finance.
Oh,
Um, after I had a mentorship program, I really didn't have it in my heart to continue it. It wasn't a heart's desire. And what I found out was that I enjoyed working with children through summer programs, church programs, and that was what brought me joy. And so when I had the opportunity to work with small children in the nation's capital, um, that led me to pursuing early childhood education as a career. It was that lightning rod moment of you do something that brings you joy, and in turn opens doors for others. So that's what drew me to education.
wow, that's excellent. Now, going back to finance, is that one of the curriculum you taught in the school system?
It is not. My my focus is always is in the curriculum has been that directed towards early learning, and early learning has its focus on exploration, and it's an exploration for the child. It's an exploration in building partnerships with parents, and it's an exploration where I use my gifts and talents to what do you enjoy, what brings you passion, how can you use that information and channel it, that knowledge, to find out what brings you joy, what opens doors for you. So, you know,
Were you able to start your teaching career in Washington, D.C., or did it start in Brunswick, Georgia?
my certified teaching career began in Brunswick, Georgia. My exploration of that, those skills as an early childhood educator, it had its focus in Washington, D.C.
Okay. Did you teach, what level of school did you teach? Elementary, middle, high school here?
I taught preschool and all elementary grades.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And what subject?
As an early childhood generalist, and as an elementary school teacher, you teach all subjects. Uh, it's a, it looks at the discovery of the mind, is using the information in math, in science, in social studies, in reading, in language development, and in the building of its building blocks to cross all curriculums.
Now, okay, we're going to get into your candidacy for school board, but as a child growing up and transitioning to elementary, middle school, high school, what 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 do you see when you were teaching that was happening in schools that was still happening when you were in school yourself, or has it changed drastically?
I am reminded of a professor that talked that education is never stagnant, it's always moving. And so the big pendulum switch comes about every 10 years, where there's a major shift in the curriculum that addresses not only the social and economic and needs of communities in our nation as a whole. So it cannot be stagnant. It's stagnant. It always moves.
One of the things that I've noticed from the time I was in school until now, I was born and raised in Philadelphia, is the cafeterias. We did not have free lunch. We did not have lunch in school. We had to go home for lunch, go back and get your education, go back to school. And so that was the big turnaround for me, to see that they implemented school lunch programs and breakfast program as they do now. But as you said, there is a big change. It does seem, you put a number on it every 10 years, but I see how the school changed since I've been in there, and my daughters graduated from Brunswick High, and now my grandkids are there now.
The society changes, and the society changes. We grow and we develop it. And as educators, we have to move with the societal changes. As you mentioned, the cafeteria needs weren't there when you and I were in school. That's because the society was different. We had parents and we had the extended family that allowed us to walk back and forth for lunch and breaks. The safety measures were not as intense as they are now, where we can have that free movement of children. So as our society changed, as our needs change, education must change to fit those needs of the students that we're entrusted, the students and the families that we're entrusted to serve.
Right, because when we were in school, we had to be to school, I believe, by 8:30 and got out like 3:30. And when we would get restless, we used to have a period called recess, and we looked forward to recess. We played jump rope, in different activities in the schoolyard and things like that. Okay, so
I think we still have that.
Huh?
In our schools. It may not be called
recess,
but it's a time where children learn during their play. So yes, there's a break in the day for children to help develop their social emotional needs on the playground and how they work with each other. So I do believe that that's still there as we see playgrounds in our communities.
So let me ask you this question. Is it up to the school superintendent to choose the curriculum that schools will have? How is the curriculum picked for who will be taught what?
The curriculum is chosen first, in my experience. It starts with an investigation and an exploration of the different curriculums as it relates to math, science, social studies, and it starts at the school levels. Core groups come together and look at the strengths and weaknesses that it meets and whether or not it meets the standards that we have. And then from those schools and those core groups, it takes it to the instructional leaders, and the instructional leaders help to facilitate that. And it goes to a recommendation to the school board. Okay. And so one of the major responsibilities of our school board is to approve curriculum instruction as guided by the instructional leadership at the schools. So the final thing comes from the school board.
Okay. One of the big controversy right now is, and always has been, the school system. I think that no matter what, whether you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, all the schools across the state, do you think they all should have the same curriculum? Because sometimes education divides our students from what they learn based on what school they went to, whether it was private, charter, or public school. Do you think that all grades of the same level should have the same curriculum across the board?
The delivery of how you deliver this, yes, I think you ought to have a centralized standard, and the standards ought to be met, and that there ought to be measuring tools to identify whether or not you have met the standard. So yes, standards are centralized. Now the curriculum that you use to meet that standard, or that will guide us in the instruction, I rely on the fact that you have to respect the fact of what an educator is. You know the subjects and how to teach it.
Right.
If you are a qualified and certified teacher, you know the subjects and how to teach it.
Right.
So we rely on the curriculum that has been established to meet the standard, and they have an input in it, and that leads me into a little tangent of my own. The 7 members of the Glynn County School Board, there is not one person on there that holds certification in education outside of that of our superintendent. If I am your elected with your vote,
yes,
I will be the one who holds the certification that knows the subject and how to teach it, as well as the curriculum. So your vote.
And that's one of my things about education, because of the division among a lot of things in society. And if one student goes to a particular school, they might get geometry or algebra in middle school. Some other schools might not get it until high school. And educators and always say that we should prepare our students for their next phase if they choose to go to college or not. And I'm just saying that sometimes that puts a division between, they may not think about it while they're in schools, but parents have that knowledge, you know what I'm saying, about who gets taught what. If they're all 9th graders, they should have all the same curriculum and things like that. And I'm glad that you believe in universal education. A stickler with me is cursive. We still have thousands of forms with the signature line, but cursive is not in schools. And that's one subject that we can discuss, because I'm sure there are charter schools and private schools that teach cursive, but our public schools don't have it. I read earlier that they are supposed to be implementing it back into the school system. When, I don't know. What is your take on that?
I am looking at a changing society, and I look at the fact that Much of what we receive information is via the internet. The technology allows us to text and to write and to type, and where in days gone by,
Mm-hmm.
we've read a lot of our information and communication with each other was through a handwritten medium.
Mm-hmm.
Our way of communicating, the bulk of our communication now is not through a handwritten medium. And so, should you be able to read it if someone writes it to you? Yes, I do think you ought to be able to read it. But is it a major part of our curriculum where I will pull away from the cursive writing versus teaching the phonetics or teaching how to find the main idea of a piece that's placed in front of me, or being able to use different forms of technology because we're living in a global society. So sometimes I think you have to weigh what is the most important aspect of communication. Is it the handwritten cursive writing, or is it reading and understanding what? And that's where we have to make a choice. It's 6 hours in a school day.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we have to make some choices because society is changing, the needs are changing, and the way we communicate is constantly changing.
Now it's just my thought, but some things will always, even though technology is taking over a lot, like you can deposit your check through your phone and many other things, I still think though the basic handwriting will still be popular because based on your position or your level that you have to sign several documents or whatever with your free hand. So that's just my choice. Whatever they do, I'll go for it. But we still write notes. You know, I've come across many people that when I write in cursive, they can't read it. You know, so I taught my daughters and my grandchildren and told them just to do the best that you can because this line is still there, and you know it's still needed. But that's one thing. Um, okay, let's move along to virtual learning. Prior to the pandemic, we had a vast number of school shootings. And I believe when the fall season came back for students to go to school, that more parents or guardians would homeschool their children however they wanted to do it. But it's just one of those things that since the pandemic, virtual learning has become pushed to the front as the number one thing to do. What do you think is the advantages or disadvantages of virtual learning?
Um, and first of all, uh, we are in a major transition
Mm-hmm.
of how we best educate our children. It's a transformational stage. And it's a transformational stage whereby we can do utilize the technology, or we can, in Glynn County, we utilize the face-to-face. it was a major challenge, a major decision about the platform that we would utilize here in Glynn County, whether or not it would be virtual or distance, whether or not it would be in place. We have something coming up, I believe it is the 21st, where parents will be able to choose between the elementary and the middle school. Parents will have the opportunity to choose, once again, whether or not they will do the virtual distance learning this quarter, or whether or not they choose to go back. So it's a learning stage in which we find ourselves in. Some of the advantages, our parents are more involved in the education of their children. And again, I believe that a child's parent is his first and most important teacher. So that is a definite advantage. Homeschooling, now we're having distance learning, and parents are being actively engaged in the teaching and the learning of their children. An advantage is we are more aware of the use of technology and the breadth of knowledge that is out there. An advantage is that children can utilize that technology to open some doors whereby they can grow beyond what's set in front of them. One of the disadvantages is that opportunity is not available to all, based on the fact of the hardware that they have. Some children are without the means of laptops, computers, surfaces, and so they are relegated to the in school. Disadvantage, there are segments of our community where they don't have that broadband access to utilize the internet services that's there. So a disadvantage. Another disadvantage is that everybody's not on the same playing field. You utilize the technology well, but my neighbor down the street may not be as aware of in the use of the various forms of technology that is needed for their child to succeed in that virtual platform. So you have where you wave it back and forth.
I talked to a few students, including my grandchildren, and they're split down the middle. Some of them want to be home with the virtual learning, and some want to go to school and get the education one-on-one and also be able to still socialize. You know, it's been a long summer for them, and that's a way of getting out, you know, the house and learn. I think one of the concerns of mine are preschoolers. When we were coming up, we didn't go to school. I don't know about you, but in Philadelphia Archdiocese, we didn't go to school until 5 years old, and that was kindergarten. But since, like you said, the educational wave comes in, it's a drastic change, and I love the ideal. I think it was around the 80s, because my oldest daughter, she was the first one to go to school at 3 years old, and I think that is teaching children then social skills, how to internet, how to communicate, networking, and communicate with other diverse children outside of their household. And so I don't know how difficult it is to get a little one at that age to sit at a period of time on virtual learning, but they are in tune to they come out knowing technology. I go to them when I need help with my smartphone. But I think, like, and the other point is, like you said, there are people our age and older who need to adapt to the technology world, because some of them just don't want to do it. But a lot of businesses, like the only utility company we have now is the water company. And so everything is done online. And so I think it will help everybody to come into the technology world and see what's going on. It's a lot of people afraid of it, you know.
10 years ago, maybe 15, 20 years ago, we talked often about we are living in a global economy, and the globalization has come full circle
Yes.
in 2020, where we really see it firsthand.
Okay, let's go to your candidacy now. What is the duties of a person that is part of the Board of Education?
Wow. Well, one of them is the hiring of employees upon the recommendation of our superintendent. So that's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is utilizing those funds, that budget, to meet the needs of our community. And so not just our community, but how we provide education in our community. Mm-hmm. So utilizing those tax dollars right now is over $160 million in Glynn County, and how we use that for educating our children. Next is the hiring, utilizing the tax dollars, curriculum, setting curriculum, bus lines and buses and schools. How do you utilize where the schools? We have new school being built.
Yes.
On Alabama Avenue. Yes, so that is property. How we utilize that property, how we access it. Those are some of them. But the money, the staffing, extracurricular, curriculum, and there are a host of responsibilities as it relates to our school board and what their responsibilities are.
Okay.
Good schools are good business. They attract employees. Good schools ensure our students are prepared to meet our nation's needs and be competitive. Good schools are about keeping the American dream. Good schools.
Okay, we're over halfway through. I just have a few more questions. What is one of the things on your agenda that you would like to input into Glynn County school system when you are chosen as our next elected school board official?
Make that statement, ask that question once again.
What is the one thing on your agenda that you will push to be implemented into the Glynn County school system?
Oh, you just gave me one thing?
Yeah, oh, it's time. Now we could do a part two. But let's see.
To make universal pre-K a real reality. That would be number one.
Say that again.
Universal pre-K.
Universal pre-K.
That's right. Your busing provide transportation for them, that it not be held on a lottery kind of thing.
Okay.
Universal pre-K.
Okay.
And it's a crux with the universal pre-K and bridging the digital divide. As we talked earlier,
Yes.
it's a matter of the haves and the have-nots.
Yes.
Everybody ought to have equal access. And so that broadband service ought to be a utility where everybody,
yes,
every child
yes,
has that accessibility for communicating electronically, as well as the tools and the resources to do that.
Okay. We all know that we're in an election season. We've been in an election season all year. What is your take on the superintendent speaking and having Trump Country 2020 in the background where the citizens could see it?
He was Dr. Spence attended a luncheon whereby he shared the insights and the challenges of educating our children in this national pandemic. And although he attended it at a Republican event, I will say, as I will tell you, anybody, that I do not believe that education is political. Education is an inalienable right.
Yes.
It is unfortunate that whoever took the picture used it in promoting the Republican Party. Dr. Spence was placed in a precarious situation whereby he was providing information, and whoever capitalized in that position made it political. Mm-hmm. Dr. Spence has made it perfectly clear that politics has reared its ugly head in how we educate children. It's a nasty season. I'm glad that I am a Democrat.
Yes,
I believe in the inalienable and inherent right for free public education, yes, quality education for all, and to steer clear of politics. Yes. Because it's not either this or that. If we're going to educate everyone, that is justice and equality. And so, yes, Dr. Spence was put in a situation. Yes, the Republican Party capitalized on it in its photo opportunity. Had he to do it again, I think he would think more strategically about what events that he participates in and how he participates in it. So that's as our chief instructional leader,
okay,
of the Glynn County school system. So
2 more questions, and they're going to be quick. Okay. What is your favorite phrase or scripture that you hold dear that gets you through the day?
Luke 12:48. To whom much is given, much is required. My parents raised in me. Regina, um, I love you from the crown of your head to the soles of your feet, the width, the breadth, and the height of you unconditionally. So I do, I do, I do.
Yes.
And that gift of love that I have for you, my baby girl, is not for you to keep to yourself, but it's to share with others. So you've been given a lot. So
Yeah.
to whom much is given, much is required.
Yeah.
And
That's
so I seek to live out that teaching and those lessons because I've been given a lot.
yeah. God says that wisdom and knowledge is wasted if you keep it for yourself and not give it to anybody else.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Miss Dr. Johnson, thank you. It seemed like it's been a while. September just came and dragged and passed my birthday, and here we are. But is there anything that I didn't ask you what is your final word that you would like to tell our listening audience that we did not discuss that you would like to say?
Yes. By any means necessary, vote. By any means necessary, vote. Make your decision now. No plan is a plan. Won't work in this situation. Will you vote by mail? Will you vote early? Or will you vote on election day on November the 3rd? I am Regina Hedgemen Johnson. I am your candidate for the Glynn County School Board. I am an experienced teacher, leader, and community servant committed to educating all children with quality and relevance. I am Regina Hedgemen Johnson. I am your candidate for the Glynn County School Board at Large Post 2, advocating for teachers. That's all teachers from the bus yard, moving on into the cafeteria and the classroom, and our instructional leaders, and advocating for parents who are their children's first and most important teacher, with transparency in governance, how we utilize those monies, those dollars to educate our children, to make it transparent so you know what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we do it. I will stay in a position where I keep you informed, and I'm only a phone call away,
Now,
working for your children and mine.
now before we get beat, I told a lie. One last question that just popped in my head. How do you feel about the testing that is done in the school system? Is it so necessary when the kids back to school? I don't think they're doing it now, but after a month or so, they're studying to prepare them for those testings. To my understanding, I thought the tests in the beginning was partly of how the teacher is teaching it and how the student is receiving it. So if a student does bad, does the teacher get retaught or instructed of how to teach that course?
Testing has always been a topic of discussion and division. So I will tell you that assessments are necessary. Assessments are necessary to ascertain where the growth is, where there's where there's growth, if there's growth, and what needs to be retaught or re-examined or modeled, or how support is needed to figure out what skill is missing to meet their standards. So I will say assessments are necessary. How we use that testing, whether or not it's to build, to find out how we can help, or whether or not assessments are used to punish.
Ooh.
Assessments should never be used to punish, but only to build. So it's always been a point of division on how we use assessments and what tools of assessments we should use. But yes, for the overall sense of it, yes, we have to have assessments to ascertain what the growth is and what needs to be re-examined and retaught.
Dr. Johnson, I enjoyed this conversation. Education is one of my passions, and I thank you. I thank you. And you continue to have a blessed weekend.
Can I just do one little pick?
Yes.
Assessments is what you're going to use to figure out whether or not who will be your best meet your needs in the coming days, come November the 3rd, whether or not it will be the incumbent or whether or not it will be Regina, the qualified, unparalleled, essential, engaging, and noble in service candidate for the Glynn County School Board. So that's your assessment piece.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Thank you.